Hey guys, welcome back to A Story with Rory. This is the podcast, and I am your host. And tonight we have a very special guest named Randy, and he is actually my dad. And there is a hi, Randy. How's it going?
Good, Rorbis. How are you?
It's good. Before we get too much into it, there is a very heartfelt, interesting story that took place in 1999 that we would like to share with you tonight. It involves the May 3rd tornado of 1999, and I'm going to have Randy here go ahead, and we're each going to give our own perspective of what happened. We were both in the same. I was living in the same house as him in high school. Yeah, I guess I was in high school at the time, and so he's going to give you his perspective, and I'm going to give you mine, and see if anything we remembered from that long time ago is the same. So, Randy, go ahead and let's start from the beginning on that day and tell us just what you remember. As
Okay,
I drink from my Bucky's cup, don't mind me.
I won't. I won't. Uh, yeah, so it was okay. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. Okay, so I had a client here in Oklahoma City, up around in the Village area, and I was doing some custom programming for him, which I really didn't do much of it back then because I was teaching a bunch of classes, and I just kind of did it as a favor. And, uh, but it was more than, I mean, I got paid for it. But anyway, it got to be about 4 in the afternoon. And I had kind of reached a point that, I wanted to beat the rush hour. That was back when, rush hour didn't start till about 4:30 or 5 or something,
Right.
as opposed to 3 like it does now here in Oklahoma City. Uh,
Hmm.
So anyway, I went ahead and came home, and we were. I was grilling something that night, and we at that during those days we normally had the TV news on, and they were talking about you know uh, some storms down around Lawton and very far southwest Oklahoma. And like most Okies, I was just kind of ignoring it. And they were even saying there was tornadoes down there, but I was ignoring it because it wasn't here, right?
Right.
So I was out there grilling whatever it was, chicken or steak, or I don't remember.
I
But
think it was chicken. I'm almost 100% it was chicken.
hey, okay. So I was out there grilling and just, you know, not paying too much attention. And we went ahead and had dinner and everything. And um, they they kept, just saying that it was getting, it was approaching Chickasha, and that's where I'm from. Okay, and my parents were still living there, and at the time, and so I started getting real concerned about that. And the interesting thing about this is we have a interstate in Oklahoma that runs from basically the southwest corner of the state up to the northeast corner of the state. It's I-44. And if you get on that at Lawton, you can go all the way to Missouri on I-44. You can go up through Tulsa and all up there. Well, this storm system, okay, that's the best way to describe it. It was the storm system that just moved right up I-44, all the way from Lawton up to almost Tulsa, is when it finally wrapped up. And anyway, um, so when it hit Chickasha, it destroyed a couple of hangars out at the airport. It was that it was spawning tornadoes. I believe that storm spawned around, I think it was 68 tornadoes, which was never heard of before. It was just crazy. So anyway, um, I started getting concerned about then the infamous, what they call the Bridge Creek Moore tornado formed. Now, if you go out to Wikipedia, they have a really complete article on this that is pretty factual, but it's a little bit misleading in that it breaks down individual tornadoes out of this one big storm. Okay, so the same tornado that hit around us touched down the first time around Bridge Creek, and uh, it was devastating. It was already at F5 levels, and Bridge Creek, it pulled the asphalt off the road.
Mm-hmm. I
It,
remember that.
yeah, it crossed the H.E. Bailey Turnpike, which is basically I-44, and it it killed, I believe, one or two people that were taking shelter um, under one of the overpasses there.
Yeah.
And it just continued to march into like the Newcastle area. And uh, growing up here in Oklahoma, there was an old uh, tale that a tornado would never cross a river. Okay. And of course, there's no basis for that, but I always believed it, and for some stupid reason. And anyway, uh, when I was watching the news, and we were watching Gary England on Channel 9, and when he said that the tornado was crossing the South Canadian River, that got my attention really big time. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's just a little bit north of Newcastle, and it was heading directly toward Oklahoma City. And I remember, in fact, it's funny because I was talking with someone else about this the other day, and they were saying, when Gary England said that you had to be underground to survive this tornado, uh, that really got our attention.
Mm-hmm.
And we had we didn't have a storm shelter. We didn't have anything resembling a storm shelter. There was no way we could get underground. And
Well, we had a tub, so
yes, we did have a bathtub and a mattress. So your mother, and I got in the bathtub. Pull your older brother Ryan was at work, which I'll cover in just a moment.
oh yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah,
We would not have fit.
he would not have fit. And in fact, we had two pugs, and we had to stick them in the shower as if that
Mhm.
would do them much good, but
Yeah.
we couldn't put them in the tub with us. And so, anyway, Ryan was working right off of I-35 across from First Baptist Church and More at Amazio's call center over
Hmm.
20 other high schoolers. And so, anyway, uh, we and it's funny, a side story. I had one of these little television VHS combo units. Some
Hmm.
may remember those. I know you remember them.
Yeah.
We had several of them, and I just popped a tape in, it hit record, and then we went into the bathtub, pulled the mattress over us, and it's funny. I still have that tape.
Do you
And,
really?
yeah, yeah, and it reaches this really freaky point there where,
Oh man, we need to watch that.
yeah, yeah, it'd be something to watch. And because it just goes to all,
Oh no.
it just cuts out. It's really freaky. And so anyway, the thing about it was we were living about 3 blocks north of Southwest 119th Street in South Oklahoma City, almost more. And the tornado uh, crossed probably about a half a mile south of us.
Hmm.
And so we we could feel the tornado. That it's the first tornado I'd ever felt in all of my, at that point, 40. Let's see, I was 99. I would have been 43 years old at the time. And all my
Man, that's like 2 years older than me. That's
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Uh,
yeah.
so so anyway, I'd never really been that close to a tornado, and we could just feel the tub. Right, I don't know if you remember that or not, and
Oh, I remember.
we could hear it. And at the time, I'd been doing some work in New York City, and it sounded to me just like a subway train going by. And so there, where you and Ryan were going to high school at Westmore, they were having an assembly, for all the overachievers, as I call it. And my joke is, I was glad that you and Ryan weren't overachievers, because you would have been at that award. We would all have been at that.
Amen to that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that they evacuated. The good news is about this is that there was a lot of advance warning. So
Hmm.
people who were, paying attention and able to take shelter, uh, were probably going to survive it. So the people in that auditorium, they went into the high school. I don't think anyone was killed in that, but directly across. It did destroy that auditorium. Okay,
Oh yeah.
and in fact, you guys didn't even have the rest of your school year. This was May 3rd, and I think you met in the Marriott or someplace downtown or someplace.
We met someplace downtown to like reorganize everything, but we basically had to go to the community college that was about 4 miles away off the highway.
Yeah. So it made the rest of the year real easy for you.
Oh yeah. You're going to college and you're only in 11th grade, so it's not like you feel like you're an overachiever, but you're just like, what am I doing here? You know?
Right. And that was the year Ryan graduated too, I believe. Um, so anyway, uh, there was an apartment complex directly east of Westmore that totally got obliterated. And there were some people that got killed in that apartment complex. And they were a couple of notable things there. There were a couple of guys just out on the balcony drinking beers and just being crazy. Now the thing about this tornado was it broke the all-time North American wind speed record. It was winds over 300 miles an hour,
Hmm.
sustained winds. And in fact, for the longest time there by the high school, there's a little creek, and on the sides of the road there's these little yellow reflector, yellow and black striped signs. You see them,
Hmm.
and they attach them to a pole, and there's a screw on the top and screw on the bottom, and this reflector sign had been ripped up, curled up. Imagine like a
Good grief.
potato chip, and
Yeah.
it had ripped. The bottom screw was still intact, and it ripped that piece of aluminum all the way up.
Hmm.
um, then the tornado continued on through Moore and destroyed a bunch of homes in Moore. Then it made its way on toward I-35, and
Oh, it made a straight beeline right through I-35 and more.
yeah,
I remember that.
it went right through Moore. And in fact, interesting, Moore got hit by two other tornadoes not too long after that, and then in I think 2013 and 2015, two tornadoes hit Moore. So it's like Moore is this tornado magnet.
Yeah, they've been hit so many times.
Yeah,
It's not even funny anymore. It's like, wow.
and there's this one street in Moore, I think it was Janeway, one
Hmm.
block that had been obliterated 3 times within 5 years.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. Anyway, so the tornado headed towards I-35. When it crossed I-35, it sucked someone out of their car that was on that highway. Imagine you're going down I-35 in Oklahoma City, and an F5 tornado hits through there. You really
Mm.
don't have a lot of warning unless you're listening to the right radio station or something.
Right.
People had pulled over, gotten under bridges and things, and there was a person or two killed there.
And it was dark by then. Once it got to Moore, I think it was pretty close to being dark, wasn't it?
No, it
Or
was about 6:30 or 7 in the evening, so there was still plenty of daylight. Um,
for May, so that's not.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Ryan was working on the west side of I-35, and all the people in his work got under their desk and everything, and most of them had parked on the south side of the building. Ryan and another guy parked on the north side of the building, and Ryan at the time was driving this Jeep red Grand Cherokee that had an engine that was about to go out.
Oh yeah.
What to do? And I said, why couldn't you have parked on the south side? And you had it totaled. All the cars parked on the south side were just totaled. They were, you know, it was
Really?
amazing.
I
So
don't remember that.
yeah, so as soon as it passed our house, I did something really foolish. Okay, looking back, should not have done it because things fall out of the sky when you don't expect them to. But I
Right.
had a Honda Passport at the time. I hopped in the Passport, and I was concerned about my son. And
Mm-hmm.
I make a beeline to there. I went down 104th Street, and there were still 2x4s flying around, dropping out of the sky. When I got to where Ryan's workplace was, there was still pink insulation falling
Gosh.
sky. And a lot of people think that cinder block buildings are safe.
Mm-hmm.
There was a storage unit just south of there made out of cinder block buildings, or cinder block concrete blocks that were just totally wiped out. Uh, just to
Man.
just like you put a bulldozer against it. So I pull up there, and I was so relieved that Ryan and all the kids there were okay. And then going on the other side of the highway, First Baptist Church of Moore was hit, and the neighborhood just south of there. Keep in mind, this tornado was a mile wide, okay, and it was on the ground for over an hour and a half in that particular tornado, the bridge
Right.
or tornado. And we had a friend that we went to church with. Name was Tom Chase. Um, he had a basement in his home, which is rare for here. There's not a lot of homes with basements, and so they got like 14 people in their basement.
Dang.
That they were just all crammed in there. And Tom also had a machine shop. He was retired, but he was a machinist.
I
And
remember him.
anything about machine work, those tools are like
Weapons.
super heavy,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just don't knock them over. And it totally obliterated his machine shop, and there wasn't a tool left. And he would joke around about it. He goes, yeah, it's somewhere between here and Tulsa, my drill press or my lathe or something.
If something's moving a drill press all the way to Tulsa for more, you've got a serious issue going on.
You got a big storm.
Because those weigh several hundred pounds.
Yeah. It's just like, and since then, in other tornadoes that I've helped clean up, I've seen pickup trucks wrapped around trees. In this tornado that we're talking about, I saw a pickup truck compressed into a ball of metal, probably about 4 feet in 4 to 6 feet in diameter, up in a
Mhm.
tree.
I
And
remember that.
do you remember that?
I
And
think it was on the paper or something.
yeah, it was down around 134th and Penn. And it just stripped the trees of all of their leaves and everything. And it was just total devastation. And so I went ahead and came back home. And I remember trying to get home, and I couldn't because of all the down power lines. And
That's when Mom got mad at you for leaving, I think.
yeah, yeah. And so we had we had a generator, and of course the power was all out. And so we had a generator, hooked it up to the TV. We were watching the TV, and eventually Ryan got home, and we were all eventually home, and we were all safe, thankfully. I mean, over I think 36 people were killed, and then directly they say, and then I think five others from indirect causes. Like there's one person that committed suicide when they saw their home was destroyed.
Dang.
Yeah. And well, the rest of the story about this tornado, real quickly, it went ahead and went up through Dell City, Midwest City, hit Tinker Air Force Base, wiped
Mm.
4 hotels along I-40. Uh, it eventually just destroyed over 8,000 homes in this just one tornado. the whole event from Lawton up to Tulsa, I think, was over 40,000 homes uh, that were either
Good grief.
destroyed. And um, so there were just a lot of devastation, over $1 billion of damage in $1999. If you applied that today, it's closer to $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
And our pastor, he happened to be on between Oklahoma City and Tulsa in a little town called Stroud, and there's a gas station that used to be there, but between around the Stroud area, and so he had pulled off there, and the tornadoes had formed up that direction too, and he and several other people got into a freezer unit there at the gas station, and
Mm-hmm.
they watched semi trailer trucks being spun around. It's almost like that movie Twister.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's
Like,
exactly like it.
that movie had come out just a few years earlier,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and or 2 or 3 years maybe earlier than that. And so the joke was it felt like we were living through Twister. But yeah, it was crazy. And then for the next several weeks, people were trying to clean up. Interestingly, we were having a house built at that time.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and so we
It
were.
didn't hit that house though. It was like a miracle.
It went right between the two homes, and there wasn't a lot of distance between the two homes.
Mm-mm.
And we,
Like 5 miles, maybe four
uh,
miles,
they maybe even less, maybe
or
three,
three. Yeah, that's.
as the crow flies. But the, the thing about it was, is almost finished. It was like 2 or 3 weeks away from us being able to move in, and we were getting ready to put our home on the market. And so we were not quite ready to move, but we
Mm-hmm.
hadn't put the home on the market, and it sold in 2 days
Mm-hmm.
because everyone needed a house. So
Yep.
that was perfect. And the only thing about us was you, your brother, your mother, our two pugs, and me lived in a La Quinta off of I-35 for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Did we really?
Yes, we did.
Man, I don't even remember that. You think I'd remember something like that, but
Yeah, well, and I think I was doing some work on the road, so your mom probably had the worst of it, being in there with the dogs and everything. But um, it's now this old shabby hotel there. But anyway, yeah, so that's my side of the story. I mean, it was quite an event.
oh, it was an ordeal, that's for sure. All right, well, now that you're done with what you remember in your perspective, I don't remember half, probably over half of the stuff that you remember for some reason. I think it was just because I was a kid in high school and I just thought, what do I need to do to graduate? Like, I mean, I didn't have to worry about bills, like where we're gonna live, all that stuff. You guys, you and mom had that figured out. I was just kind of there along for the ride. So, let's see here, 1999, May 3rd. I, I remember it was a normal day at school. Like sun was shining, clouds. It was just beautiful weather. I mean, just gorgeous day. It was like one of the best days of weather we had had in I don't know how long. And people kept kind of mentioning all day like how beautiful it was. And I just remember like coming home from that was in the dream house I called it
Mm.
because it had the green and gold and red wallpaper everywhere, like kind of like Christmas looking wallpaper. And it had like the dark red and black brick and
Yes, it
man,
was.
yeah, green was everywhere in that house. But that was actually probably my favorite. Besides Morning Glory, that was probably like, as far as like for a newer house, that was like my favorite place to live when we were growing up.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, I got home from school. I had homework, and I was absolutely dreading to do the homework. I did not want to do it. I I think I kind of said to mom that I didn't have homework, or I didn't know. I kind of passed it off. And then a little bit later she's like, "Do you have homework or not?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, well, you need to get it done." And me trying to procrastinate, I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if I just got this homework done and like impress mom and my teachers and everyone else? And so I sat there at the dinner table or the bar or whatever,
Mhm.
on the kitchen island thing, and did my homework. And it was like not just an hour, it was like 2 or 3 hours. It was like I got home 3 o'clock, started on at like 3:30, and got done by like 5:30, something like that. Um, and I remember going outside, and you were like cooking chicken or whatever, smoking chicken. Um, and you had gone back inside and you're letting it all cook or whatever. And then I just kind of go in the backyard, and I thought the air felt weird. I thought just the mixture of dew point and humidity and just looking at the clouds, um, they just looked kind of ominous a little bit, and it didn't look right. And I was like, man, there's like something coming. I'm not sure what. And then that's when I go inside, and I noticed then the weather was like, there's starting to be some spin ups down in southwest Oklahoma towards Chickasha, because I kept hearing that over and over. And Lawton, I heard the words Lawton a lot. I guess it was either Gary England or Mike Morgan we were listening to. Um, but they kept on just staying with the storm, and it just kind of started like a little bitty tornado spin up. This tiny little F1 wasn't doing much. It was just kind of blowing some stuff around. And it was like, give it 10 or 20, 30 minutes, and it just kind of got a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and it got into an F2, you know. And by the time it passed Chickasha, it was an F3. And then once it got to Newcastle, it just kept growing. And it was just like nothing was making this thing stop growing. It just was like a tornado on roids. And that's the only way I can really describe it.
Mm.
And, well, from then on, it was just kind of like watching this tornado just come straight towards your house.
Yeah.
And in the back of your mind, you don't have any tornado shelter. You don't really have anywhere that's safe in your house. And I know we all kind of panicked there for a minute, um, thinking like, if it comes towards us, what do we do? So the best way to describe this thing, and if it makes any sense, I really haven't been scared of any tornado since, um, as long as it's not the same magnitude,
Right.
you know, just because I know what that kind of tornado damage, can be done. I know what it's capable of and all that.
Hmm.
But I'm not saying don't fear tornadoes. I'm just saying once you see one that bad, when you see like an F1 or F2, you're just like, more than likely, if you stay in somewhere that's pretty secure, nothing's going to happen. You might lose some shingles off your roof, stuff like that. Debris can fly, but as long as you're not dealing with a monster like that, that type of tornado, then you're probably going to be okay. But I just remember we were eating dinner, and then afterwards, we just kept watching the storm on TV, and it just kept getting closer and closer. And finally, we heard the tornado sirens, and we did have warning just because we watched it come all the way up the state. But I just remember me, you, mom got in the got in her jacuzzi bathtub, and I don't think we had the dogs in there yet. And then she sent you to go get the pugs, and you came in with a pug in each arm, I think, and put them in the shower, that was next door to the tub. And I remember, somehow a mattress was involved. You got one of the mattresses off me and Ryan's bed or something, or it might have been off y'all's bed. I don't know, but I just remember you grabbed one,
Yeah.
and we all kind of hunkered in there. And I remember something about, I wasn't laughing at the time, but I remember you saying something about the lines of like, this is it.
Yeah.
And mom, she just lit into you like there's no tomorrow. Like it
She's
was
still
bad. She
forgetting.
yelled at you.
I, was,
Yeah,
I
she
think what I said was, "Here we go."
mm-hmm. She let you have it.
Yeah.
And of course I was freaking out because I'm just a kid and I'm just like, Jesus, help us, please, please, like
There,
just
there, those,
praying.
there are those prayers going up too. Help us, Lord.
Yeah, and the only way that I can really describe the sound of this thing was I agree with you on the way that it sounded. It sounded like a freight train, but to me it sounded like 1,000 freight trains that were about 200 feet tall,
Mm,
and they were all stacked side by side, zooming past your house.
yeah.
And it was like, I don't know if you've ever heard a vacuum startup where it's just like, it was like this. I remember hearing this pattern, just like the like that.
Mhm.
And dude, the ground shook, the wall shook, everything shook. And I thought we were goners. Like, I really thought we weren't going to make it out of that house.
We had
Uh,
no way of knowing.
no, there's no way you can just get out there with like a kaleidoscope and be like, da-da-da-da, where's the tornado at, Bob? I don't know.
Right.
So we were freaking out. And all I remember is praying and freaking out and holding on to you and mom. And man, there's just nothing worse than not knowing if something like that's going to happen to you and hit your house. And like we were just the roof was I was expecting the roof to come off and us fly up. Um, but I remember it just that sound persisted for like it wasn't long, but it was definitely a minute or two
Yeah.
um, of just that intense, that chin 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 sound, and then it got quieter and quieter. It got less invasive and traumatic, and then it moved on, and I'm just like, wow, I'm so happy we did not get sucked up in that thing. And I remember getting out of the tub and going outside, and I had the black Maxima at the time, the 1990 black Maxima, and I had parked right by the mailbox, right by the curb, and I had this little thing. I would actually like touch the curb a little bit
Hmm.
when I would pull the car up. Um, and I mean, my tires were like almost touching the curb. And then I went outside after this tornado, and my car was over 5 feet away from the curb.
Oh wow.
Picked the car up and screeched it.
I'd never heard that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there was tons of hail damage on the hood. I remember that too. So I'm like,
Yeah.
something to pick up something that was 4 to 5,000 pounds and just move it 5 feet. That tells me that tells me that tornado, and we heard some kind of report. It was like almost half a mile from where we were at, because it tore the backside of my high school up,
Right.
and our house was not even a mile from our high school.
Right.
So we got like, I still believe we got like the edge of the tornado
Hmm.
between our house and the high school. We actually got the edge outskirts of that tornado, the wind gusts, the hail, the rain wrap, and all that stuff. And man, I remember I was just terrified during that incident. But I remember just, yeah, insulation everywhere, debris everywhere. Yeah, and it took weeks. It took months and years to clean all that stuff up overall. And I helped a little company do it for my first job when I was
Oh
16.
yeah. Oh
Yeah, Johnny Anderson at the church. Yeah, I'd help them clean up the part of the Moore tornado stuff. But anyways,
Oh, hey, Roy, I want to stop you for a second on that one. His business was X-ray machine,
yeah.
and he had a whole warehouse. I helped on some of that cleanup at his warehouse too. His warehouse was full of X-ray machines,
Hmm.
and I mean, they weighed tons.
They weighed exactly. I know this for a fact. They weigh each of them weigh 1,000 pounds at minimum. At minimum, okay. These things are huge. Like it takes like a jack, a dolly, all sorts of stuff just to move one.
And they were,
So
we had to bring them down, and oh man, that was
those things were probably flying through the air. 1,000 pound X-ray machine, cars, everything you name it, flying through the air, and
uh,
that's almost more terrifying than getting sucked up, from a
yeah.
tornado. But
But I do
I
remember
remember,
that you guys had to move some of those across town or someplace. Yeah, that was quite a job.
yeah, it was horrible. I mean, it was a good job for being, barely 15 and a half. you know, I'm
Yeah.
making like 600-700 bucks a week or 2 weeks or something. But yeah, after that tornado, it was like every tornado past that just was not. It was like small potatoes. And yeah, Moore did have several. One they had one that leveled that whole neighborhood across from the Moore Warren Theater. Like every single house in the neighborhood was completely leveled, every single one. And insurance, it wasn't just insurance. Insurance combined with FEMA, and another fundraiser type deal basically rebuilt every single house in that neighborhood, and they were all built the same. So it wasn't like if you had a custom home, you're just kind of like out of luck at that point. But
Well, the joke is in more we call a tornado urban renewal,
yeah,
because
you want your house or fixed up, go there.
yeah, there were some pretty bad neighborhoods, and that now, after the tornado, they look real nice because they had to totally rebuild them. And one other funny little story. So in this new house that when we moved in it, based on that experience, I had a storm shelter uh, installed, and
Oh, in the backyard, I remember that.
for various reasons, we moved. We only lived in the house for like 3 years or so. Um, and we moved. And when I think it was 2015, is either 2013 or 2015, we had two tornadoes like 10 days apart.
Hmm. That
And
was wild.
yeah, and so it was right where our new house had been, or new house was, but the new house didn't get hurt. But some homes just just like 2 or 3 blocks south of that were totally destroyed. So
Hmm.
the cleanup, and I just couldn't help myself. I knocked on the door of the people that lived there, and lady answered the door, and I said, "Excuse me, you don't know me, but I'm the guy that had this house built and had the storm shelter put in and everything, and I was just wondering if you guys used it." And she goes, "Oh, we sure did. Thank you for putting that." Put
When was that?
Huh?
When was that?
That was, I believe, I'd have to look it up, but is either 2013 or 2015 when the same storm that hit the school and killed the children.
Oh, yeah, I think it was like 2015. Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, yeah, and it wiped out an entire neighborhood just south, the Briar Creek neighborhood, just south of
Mhm.
where our home was is around 12th Street and more. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then up to 4th Street and more, where the Plaza Towers elementary school was. The kids got killed. Yeah,
Yeah, that was a sad story.
very sad.
Did you ever go? Have you ever been back by the house on Santa Fe?
Only then.
It has like, I don't know what it's turned to, but they put like all these ugly shrubs and I don't know what they were thinking because it was a beautiful home when it was built. And now it's just you look at it and you're like, what's that?
Yeah,
People just treat things differently than others. I don't know. I don't get it. But when we had it, it was definitely nice. It was definitely. I kind of wish you guys would have stayed there, but that's just me. I
Yeah.
like that house too. It was pretty fun. Um, I
Yeah. Yeah.
remember
Hey, you had your own room.
I did. I had my own room and it was insulated for drums. Like I could play
Mhm.
my drums and not annoy the heck out of everybody.
Yeah. I'm not going to call it soundproof, but it was at least an attempt at soundproofing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, our house now is kind of like soundproofed a little bit. We got three different types of insulation and it keeps the heat in and we don't really hear much highway traffic outside. So I mean that's definitely a plus. One freaky thing I never told your mom about is there was mom was home by herself. I think I was going to OCCC, and this was right after May 3rd. Maybe I can't remember which tornado this was. Honestly, I mean, there's just been so many. I just can't. I can't keep them straight. Dang it.
I know.
And so I had the white Acura at that point, the Acura Integra, the little 5 speed.
Hmm.
Love that car. Should
Oh,
never
that
have
car.
should never have like ruined the engine and all that, but that's a different story. I was driving down 4th Street in Moore, and what was what was Westmore off of? It was is that Western?
Western.
So I was turning on Western and 4th Street, heading eastbound, and I'm not kidding. I see cars just flying my way and in my lane of travel, like opposite direction of travel. And there's this tornado spinning in the middle of the road, coming right at me.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, I threw my brakes on, put it in reverse, gunned it, hit my e-brake, cranked my wheel, basically did a J turn, cranked my wheel, put it in first, and then, dude, hit the clutch at like 3 or 4 grand and just let off and was like flying. I was like, I am not doing this again. No way.
Wow.
And it freaked me out. And I called mom at the same time. I was trying to get hold of her. And I was like, Mom, there's a tornado. There's a tornado in our area, but it's like coming right at me. I got to hang up. And, I did that little maneuver and it was,
Yeah, I know exactly what that was. And I was up in Kansas City,
yeah, you were gone.
yeah, teaching a class, and it came on the news that a tornado. We were still living in the house there on Santa Fe that we were talking about, the new house.
Yeah.
Um, that a tornado had touched down along in that area, and so I was freaking out because I was getting ready to speak to this group of people up there at this meeting, and this was coming across the news while we were having dinner. It was around, I want to say, like 6 or so in the evening,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was that tornado. Yeah, it was. Wow.
Which
That
one? Which one was that?
Oh, that would have probably been 2000. I want to say 4 or 5, something like that. Um,
It wasn't 5 because I think I was in Texas at that point. I was going to ATI, so it had to have been before that. I think it was like '02 or '03,
yeah. So
maybe. But yeah, it was right after I graduated high school,
okay.
and because I was going to OCCC in the city, and man, I tell you what, I was I was shocked, scared, and I was literally floored with the gas pedal on that one because I was like, man, this
That's cool. I
sucker
know
was.
that story.
Mhm. Now, if I just would have had a drone at that point and kind of far away, that would have been great. But
Yeah.
um, I just in my mind, I remember it was like an epic shot of this tornado just uh, going counterclockwise, and I'm just like, no, 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 nah,
You know,
not today.
something that happened not too long ago here, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, we had a tornado just in our neighborhood. And so I was outside. I mean, I went outside to check conditions, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I look up in the sky and I see the tornado forming. You know, I mean, it's definitely coming down. I see it.
Yeah.
No sirens, no TV warnings, no nothing. I come running back into the house yelling, tornado, tornado, you know. So I grab Jan and the dogs and we go down. We have a garage shelter now, that underground garage shelter. I got them all down there. And that tornado hit at uh, 119th and Penn. No,
Mm-hmm.
in Western, just
Yeah.
north of Westmore. Excuse me, again.
Yeah.
And um, it did a lot of, not a lot, but it did a fair amount of damage up there. But I thought it was weird that after all the damage had happened, then they started blowing the sirens.
That classic Oklahoma.
Yeah, yeah. So don't. My lesson learned from that is don't just trust the siren. And sometimes they blow the sirens, and the tornado is like miles away, but they have to if it's in the same county or something like that.
I think May 3rd, the tornado on May 3rd was probably it's the worst damage that I have ever seen in person.
Yeah.
The one in Joplin, I think, was the actual worst one though in absolute history. Like it was the most damage ever done in history. And I don't know if you know a lot about that one. I know you remember it, but
Yeah.
I happen to know somebody um, that had to do cleanup there,
Hmm.
and he worked as part of the emergency cleanup. But anyways, I won't get in any details of too much about it. But there was one distinguishing fact that he did tell me, and I was literally just floored when he told me what it was. And basically, this tornado did so much damage that there was a Mercy Hospital, like a 32 floor or something, giant Mercy Hospital, like one of the biggest hospitals in the state, or I don't know. It was just I just know it was a giant one. Really sad, but this tornado was so massive and so damaging that it moved this giant hospital, this Mercy Hospital, moved it 5 inches off of its slab.
What?
Like, moved the whole thing. He said it looked like something took it and just went 5 feet. And they couldn't use the hospital anymore. The hospital had to be torn down.
Oh, yeah. It would affect everything. The plumbing,
Hmm.
and
And he just was like, the look on his face, he's like, I've never seen anything like that.
yeah,
And, he just said, just limbs and pieces of bodies just everywhere. And he's just like, it was basically, it's like a war zone. And I was just like,
yeah.
whenever he told me, because I mean, I knew the May 3rd tornado to be pretty freaking bad. Like you said, that tree was, or that truck was up in that tree, just crumbled. And there was other cars that were just like wrapped around like a pretzel.
Hmm.
Um, and motorcycles that were like 200 miles away, like that's some serious,
Uh,
that's a mess.
yeah, a kind of a funny story in the cleanup of that May. I think it was is it the May 30th? There was that, like I say, they were like 10 days apart in 2015.
Mhm.
The one that was just south of our house that I was talking about. So I was there in cleanup and helping this helping some people, just I mean, it was just rubble everywhere. And in the middle of all this rubble in this guy's garage was this really nice Yamaha red motorcycle with a helmet sitting right on the seat. And I said, wow, I told the owner, I said, wow, that's amazing that your motorcycle just nothing happened to it. The helmet's still on the seat. And he just looked at me and goes, that's not my motorcycle.
What?
It actually the tornado had actually lifted it and deposited it in his now demolished garage.
Oh man. So
I,
whose bike was it?
it was one of his neighbors. Uh,
Oh man. I thought he was gonna be like, mine was demolished. This was my new one that insurance had reimbursed me for.
but
Oh.
the forces that are going on in tornadoes are just like you say, they're off the charts. I mean, and it's not just pure wind, okay? Because I don't know if you've seen pictures of this happen too, but like uh, pieces of straw being, driven through telephone posts, and the pressure, it builds.
Mhm.
The pressure comes out, and you don't hear as much about this anymore, I guess, because the way homes are being built. But they used to tell people to open your windows, uh, because homes would explode. They don't do that quite so much anymore. But the pressure uh, gets so low. The air pressure drops way, way, way low, and it can cause something to really expand out. And think about this. Think about like with cars, a frame straightening shop.
Mhm.
You've had a wreck and they try to straighten the frame on your car. That's pretty heavy duty stuff, right? And to think that an entire pickup, frame and all, can get wrapped around a tree, and an 18-wheeler turned into a ball of metal, that those are forces that are just off the chart. You just, you know it
Never imagined something like that, like wind or force that powerful.
you don't see it with hurricanes. You don't see it with anything else except tornadoes.
Mhm.
And
It's
a
almost like,
wild.
so like, I'm not going to relate tornadoes and the Fibonacci sequence the same, but the Fibonacci sequence is seen just about everywhere in life. And I mean, technically, a tornado is really no different. It's like a tornado spins. It it gets stronger. It uses momentum off of itself to get stronger, and it's just like it uses the pressure, the dew point, all that stuff um, as fuel. And just basically the conditions of the hook and like the vast dry line and all that. It uses all those conditions, but it's like an engine. It's like an engine that is just can turn into high horsepower at any time.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of like one of those things, we don't, I mean, we know kind of how they work. We don't know how they get started really. Like what makes this one get started over here, but this one not over here, you know? Like what is the absolute difference in this one or that one or this or the other,
Yeah,
or what kind of damage it does. And it's just like, you just don't know.
no,
Mother Nature is just kind of like unpredictable sometimes, and things just happen. But it's like we haven't seen another May 5th come around, and I mean, at least in Oklahoma, and I'm really glad. But uh, yeah. So
yep, me too.
we have Dogecoin Inspectors says, "How you doing? We're doing good, man. Thanks for watching, and I hope you get a view this whole video. We did have quite a few viewers earlier. I think we got up to like 5 or 6, which is pretty good for just doing a little live stream here
Yeah,
for YouTube and our podcast and all that. But yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your support and all that. So, well, Dad, I know it's kind of late. It's about time to turn in.
yep,
Thanks for your perspective on the May 3rd tornado and all the impacts that it had, and the damaging results that we both had to live through.
yep.
And I mean, I still think like I think it just everyone that went through that basically had some kind of traumatic effect from it, and even to this day, and you hear tornado, you see something, you see the sky ominous. You're kind of like, well, I'm not gonna do anything crazy. I'm gonna kind of play it safe. I mean, try to find a shelter or whatever. And
There's a lot of May 3rd stories around here. That's for sure.
yeah, that's for sure. But all right. Well, thanks for being on, and thank you for sharing me your side of the story. And till then, stay tuned. We'll see you later.
Okay. Night, everybody.
Nice having you on. Bye. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to A Story with Rory. I am your host. And until next time, I will catch you later. And we're out.